Hi, everybody. This is Kathy L. Murphy reporting from my little cabin in the woods, Murphy's Law, here in East Texas. And tonight we have with us our International Book of the Month author, Marilyn Kriete, who has the most incredible memoir, one that is so inspirational to me. I am so excited to share her with you tonight, the story behind the story, but it's called Paradise Road. It's a memoir and it is unlike any other memoir I've ever read. And I read a lot of memoirs, Marilyn. That's one of my favorite things to read: biographies, autobiographies, memoirs. So let's begin. Before I start, I also want to introduce Robert Gwaltney, who has a book coming out in 2022 that'll be a Pulpwood Queen book club selection called the cicada. We had an argument about the cicada tree. Some people say cicada, but it's like tomato, potato, whatever. But Marilyn's here tonight to talk about her story. Let's first get a little bit of background before we delve into it. You live in British Columbia, and
I do.
Yeah. Tell us about that.
Well, I've lived in British Columbia since 2003, and I've lived in Kelowna, the place where I live now, since 2014. Kelowna is actually a tourist hotspot. It's in the Okanagan Valley, which is a winemaking valley, kind of desert temperatures in the summer. There's a huge lake called Okanagan Lake that's kind of in the center of the valley, and it's just gorgeous. It looks a lot like Galilee area in Israel.
Really? You're going to have to post some photos.
Yeah, it's very, very beautiful. Not so beautiful in the winter, but beautiful in the summer, because we do get Canadian winters here too. So, yeah.
So what's the temperature there today?
Today it's about just a little above freezing. So probably 30, I don't know, 38 degrees or something like that. So,
it's not
which is a very good March day for us.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
It'll be in the 90s before long, and then it'll stay really hot all summer, and then back to winter. So
I don't really think of it. Is it like high desert, or even though you're in a valley, or?
Well, it is. We're kind of in all of BC is kind of mountainous. Like we've got the coastal mountains, and then we got mountains all through the interior, and then we got the Rockies on the other side of us. So it's all mountains. So we're kind of in the middle of a range too. But it's very beautiful.
I almost made it to Canada. I've been to Alaska, but I haven't been to Canada. When I actually backpacked up the California coast, I drove to spots and backpacked. I went all the way up to Crater Lake and was going to go and ran out of time. I only had 2 weeks vacation. So then I came back down. I did through the national parks, and that was quite an experience for me. But I'm adventuresome, but I don't think I'm quite as adventuresome as you.
So what year was that for you, Kathy?
That was probably 86, something like that. That was a long time ago.
Yeah.
And it was back when I lived in San Diego. But when I lived in California, I spent a lot of time camping and going out hiking, and went up to Julian, went into the Joshua Tree Monument. I actually was camping there one time with my first husband, and I woke up in the middle of the night in our tent. We were the only people in the park, and I couldn't figure out why I woke up, and I looked out the tent flap, and our car was bouncing up and down like a basketball. And I thought, first thing I thought was aliens.
Of course.
It was an earthquake.
Wow.
It was an earthquake. But if you don't have any point of references, you have no idea. And it was an earthquake, and a pretty strong one, because it made our car, we had a Honda, bounce all around outside the camping site. It was really eerie. I just kept expecting a beam to be coming down or something. I watched too many movies. But I do love to travel. I love to go to national parks, and I worked in one when I was back in college in Kansas. I was a lifeguard rangerette. So let's hear about your story. Now, I don't want to give anything away, but I think it's okay to begin with your amazing story of how this all began for you. where, you know, life is about choices. And, um, you know, when you're that young as you were, um, tell everybody how your story began with this memoir, or why did you
Well,
even decide to write it?
well, it's I don't think as I was living it that I was thinking I would write it, but it wasn't too long afterwards I looked back and thought, you know what, this is going to be a book one day. I have to write this because I recognized that it was an unusual story, and it was something that I really wanted to share. But I think in terms of choices, probably the first significant choice I made in my story was choosing to run away from home when I was 14. And that stemmed back to the not so great relationship I had with my mother, and just feeling like around her, I never got it right. I was always in trouble. I was always, I just felt like she was pretty much always on my case. I had four brothers, and they got a bit of that, but I got the brunt of it. And yeah, I just decided when I was 14 that I couldn't do 4 more years of that. I had to just get out. And another part of it too was that I share in my memoir too, is that I was very much into exploring being a hippie and dabbling in drugs and stuff. And I had a sense, and this was all very secretive, and I just had a sense that my mother was going to find out one of these days, and my world was going to crash big time. And so I thought, well, if I just run away, then that won't happen either. I'll just, yeah, I'll forestall that as well. So that was the big, and that I never went to live. I never returned home after that. That was my, I left home for good, and ended up in a girls' home for a couple of years, and then I was on my own very young, living independently. So I guess that was the first big juncture in my life that kind of determined where I was going. So
And that
yeah.
that choice, though, made you even more, in a lot of ways, adventuresome. I mean, for a woman to bravely take off like that, even at 14, you know, my grandmother got married at 14, and her mother
Yeah,
got married at 14.
yeah,
I was thinking, shoot, I went to college at 17. I didn't have a clue.
yeah.
But I
Well,
didn't
I
go
didn't have a
back
clue
either,
either, but
Marilyn. I
yeah.
didn't want to go back either because where do you fall in your siblings?
I'm the only girl. I have four brothers. I was the second oldest. Um, but I think the only thing I can attribute it to is I think I reminded my mother very much of my aunt on my father's side. And my mother, for some reason, just never liked my aunt. And I think I looked too much like her and acted too much like her. And she just projected her feelings about her on me. That's the only way I could explain it. I don't really know what was going on, but and it's sadly a relationship that never really got fully mended. We managed to, kind of have a relationship later, but it was never a typical mother-daughter relationship. So yeah. So
Wow. Well, for those that, I've read a lot of books, but every story about a memoir that starts like this, where there's a runaway or something happens at home, they're all so different. You can't lump them all together. I read The Glass Castle,
mhm.
by Jeanette Walls and Jennifer Locke's Blackbird. I mean, there's so many books about girls that have this something pretty. Was there anything that you can think of, particularly one thing that happened, or was it just a compilation of everything that made you decide that you had to leave?
Well, it was even like I posted today on Breathless Bubbles about the bad haircuts.
Oh,
I
well.
mean, even that, I mean, we laugh about it now, but just that feeling that my mother was kind of opposing me at every step. Like I didn't have to have those ugly haircuts, but she insisted on them, and I didn't have to wear ugly clothes, but she insisted on them, and I just kind of felt like we were constantly at war, and it didn't have to be that way, right? But so there wasn't any one particular incident, but there was a window of opportunity. There was a weekend that came up where my parents never took separate vacation weekends, but that weekend they did, and it was kind of the opportunity I had to slip away. And I went with my best friend, and we went 850 miles away. It wasn't running away across town. We actually went across the country. Um,
And that was what year? About what year was
that
that?
would have been 1970.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Well, it was. it was not as dangerous as it is. Well, it's always a danger.
Yeah.
I think it's really dangerous now. But back then, I knew a lot of people that hitchhiked back and forth to
Oh,
college
yeah.
and everything. The 70s was kind of that. In a lot of ways, we were doing all this experimental stuff, but in other ways, it was a lot safer. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
now,
I didn't feel, I wasn't aware of any danger. I mean, I was probably very naive, but I didn't have fear about that aspect of it. I basically trusted people, probably more than I should have. But
well, we all do these things, but that the picture on the cover of your book was one. Explain that. On the cover of her book, y'all, there's a picture of you on a bicycle, and you're driving, you're riding down the highway, and somebody has snapped a photo of you, and all you can see is this desolate,
yeah.
kind of openness with mountains kind of back behind, and you're out in the middle of nowhere. I mean,
Mhm.
that's always, I remember in college, this other rangerette and I decided we were going to buy motorcycles and we were going to travel across the country. Well, we
There's a
never did,
picture. Yeah.
but you did. Yeah, there it is. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Oh,
beautiful.
that's great. Thank you. That's the
Thank you.
new
Thanks,
cover.
Robert. That's the
I
new
was
cover.
trying to find the new cover today, and for some reason I couldn't find it, so I just posted the one that it was close, but that's the new cover. But that is
The
a
same
beautiful
photo, just a different
that's
design.
double
Yeah.
rainbow.
Yeah. Double rainbow. Yeah. Yeah. So I think that picture was taken somewhere in New Mexico. It was on the desert part of a trip that I was cycling from San Francisco across California, through Yosemite, across the desert, across the southern part of Arizona, and then across New Mexico to El Paso. So that was taken somewhere out there.
And it gets
Yeah.
cold at night in the summer in New
Oh,
Mexico.
I don't remember any cold nights. I remember hot days though. It was very, very
Oh,
hot
yeah.
and very, very dry.
How long were you in the picture that's on the cover?
I'm 22 or 22, 23, I think. Yeah.
Can you
No, 22
imagine?
still, 22. Yeah.
It's just absolutely awe-inspiring to me. And explain how that picture was taken.
Well, actually, at that point, I was traveling. I had a travel companion. I met this person from California who was 18 years my senior, and we were both kind of riding on the coast together. And he wanted to go visit his sister in El Paso, and asked me if I wanted to do that trip with him. And I wanted to do a desert trip, but I was a little afraid to do that by myself.
Yeah.
So I said, sure, let's do it together. Thinking that he's 18 years older, he's not my type, nothing's going to happen. Of course, that didn't last long. Ended up being with him for quite a long time, actually. Yeah, but you can read about that in my book. But he ended up being one of my strange rebound relationships in my story. But yeah,
I'm finding all these. We live vicariously when we read books, especially memoirs, and I just found your whole story just very inspiring. I mean, I know it was probably at times frightening and worrisome, and I can't even imagine, how you lived. I mean, basically, how did you fund everything that you were doing if you took off like that? How do you do it?
well, it's funny. I marvel at that these days because I don't know if I could do it again. But um, my travel budget was basically $5 a day, and that was enough to feed myself and pay for maybe a laundromat stop once a week or every 2 weeks if I could find one. I never paid for camping, never camped in a campsite. So basically, all I had to do was, buy food, my fuel, and I was really good at. I've never been a very materialistic person. So even before I started traveling, I was earning minimum wage or whatever, but I always had enough to put in the bank, and so I had savings basically that I made from. I worked as a cook before I did that trip, and I'd save my money and.
You
$100
worked as a
back
cook
then.
before you at 14.
I was no, I had a cook. I worked at a cook, started working as a cook when I was 17 or 18, I think. Yeah. I had quite a few different jobs in between that. So
I actually started lifeguarding at about that age, and
yeah,
I was real young for my class. I mean, I went to
Yeah.
college at 17, so and I was tall, so people thought I was older.
yeah,
But I remember I made $2 an hour. I mean,
Yeah.
you got to work, but I could fill up my Volkswagen Bug for $3.
yeah,
You know,
yeah.
that's hard to believe these days. I just filled up the other day, and after a month, and I was shocked. It gone up
Yeah.
like 50 cents. It's like crazy.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, no, I started working full time. I started with 2 full-time jobs actually that I worked when I was on my own at 16. So I worked a lot, and but then I saved a lot too, so I had money to travel. So
It's all about priorities, isn't it?
mhm.
So you say you're not a very materialistic person even now
Not at all,
today?
not
Yeah.
at all.
And so things
I'm a thrift store person. Everything I
I
have
am
is
too, though.
everything I have is secondhand, and I've moved a lot. Like I've lived in 16 different cities so far, and four continents. And so when you travel and move a lot, you just can't accumulate a lot of stuff. So I don't have a lot of stuff. Even those photos I have from my trip, that I only have like 5 photos from all of those years. I've nothing else.
Well, and when you move a lot, you lose a lot of stuff too.
Totally. Yeah.
I don't know where half my photos went. I was trying to find my scrapbook with my I call it my lawnmower pixie cut. They cut your hair with a razor.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I just look like a Holocaust victim. I swear to God, I look like I got hit in the head with a lawnmower. I was trying to find it. I can't find it anywhere. I don't know what happened to it. So
It'll turn up somewhere, I'm sure.
yeah, well, but yeah, I understand those haircuts. And did your mother have long hair or short hair?
She had short hair, but her hair was a different texture. She had dark, almost black hair and natural wave, and so she could get a nice cut, and it would look good. But she took me to her German hairdresser, and he just did that to me every year. He did worse and worse on me, and nobody seemed to raise an eyebrow. It seemed to, but
that was the day and age when, as my mother explained it to me, it doesn't matter what the kids look like. It only matters what the parents look like.
I guess so. Yeah.
Children are supposed to be seen and not heard or even recognized.
Yeah.
So Marilyn, your next memoir should be entitled Hair Atrocities.
Yeah, actually, I do have another memoir coming out. It'll probably come out next January, and it's called The Box Must Be Empty. So
it's a continuation of your story.
Well, it picks up 20 years later, but it is a continuation because it's about the grief that I buried basically after the tragedy in my life occurred, and how it resurfaced much later in my life after I was married and had kids and had a whole different life going on, and suddenly this grief that happened to me when I was 22 just flooded back into my life, and I felt like I was 22 years old again. I felt like I had just lost that person, and it was a very long, painful journey to process that grief at that stage in my life. So that's what that second memoir is primarily about, that, but also some other stuff that had happened to me along the way. So
Marilyn, so there was a trigger in your life that brought this trauma back all those years later.
There was, totally. Yeah. There were actually a couple things. One was seeing some friends that I'd known at that time that I hadn't seen in all those years, and getting back together with them and talking again about that experience and that person. And then the second trigger was actually seeing the movie Titanic, funnily enough. And it was a dramatic arc between Jack and Rose that sort of paralleled, I felt, what had happened with me. And I felt like old lady Rose. I wasn't old yet, but I felt like old lady Rose, that there was a part of me that was stuck in that past with Jack, and Jack was the same name that my lost fiance had. And so that watching that movie just completely undid me, and that sort of took the lid off.
Do you find that movies, to me, are kind of like a weird way of therapy? and it's something about the music too. If I hear the soundtrack from To Kill a Mockingbird, I cry every single time.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Because that was it's such an important film to me when I was a kid. Because I was Scout. And I hear that music to this day. Certain just like even certain smells. I bought the house that I lived in Jefferson that was historic because when I walked in, it smelled just like my grandma's house. And you know why? It had those space heaters, those real ornate space heaters in each room that were gas. And I remember that I hadn't smelled it since I was a child. And I thought, this reminds me of grandma's. And I just felt so at home. But smell, sound, and visual things, like if you see a photograph, it will take you back. Like those photographs of you. I swear I have that one with the jumper and the Peter Pan collar. I have that exact same outfit on. And I remember mine came from Sears.
Yeah, yeah. That was my first grade picture. Yeah, go ahead, Robert.
There's a Tennessee Williams quote that says, in memory, everything happens to music.
I believe that. I believe that because you can hear a song from high school and all of a sudden you're right back there. Or you can hear a song that, a concert or something you went to and you remember that.
It's amazing. I walked through the elevator lobby the other day, and there was this old Duran Duran song playing, and it almost just brought me to my knees.
Isn't that funny? It is so funny like that. So I understand what you're talking about completely. So you do you have any family around you now where you're living?
Not here in Kelowna, except my husband, of course, and one of my kids is nearby. But I actually, we were living overseas before we moved back to Canada. We were out of the country for 20 years. And when we moved back in 2003, we chose to move to Vancouver area because 3 of my brothers were in that area. So I moved back to be closer to them because I didn't get much time with them growing up. I left pretty early and then didn't see much of them for many years and wanted to catch up on that lost time. So yeah, so I have a great relationship with my brothers. So
isn't that awesome?
Yeah,
really great.
And my mother's passed away. She died about a year ago, I guess, and which was kind of a relief because I was a little worried about the memoir and how I wrote about her. And my dad is about to turn 90, and he keeps asking, "When am I going to get to read that book? When am I going to get to read that book?" So he's dying to read it, but he hasn't read it yet. So.
Marilyn, I have a question. When you think back upon your 14-year-old self, at that point in your life, did you have a vision for yourself and for your future? And at that point in time, did you have a clear sense of who you wanted to be?
Nothing mature. I mean, I was in love with John Lennon. I was sure that I really seriously thought, he's going to get over Yoko eventually, and then he's going to end up coming to Edmonton, and somehow I'm going to meet him, and he's going to know the minute he sees me that I'm the one. I mean, that's where my thinking was at. So moving and running away to Vancouver, I think I just wanted to be a hippie and just, I didn't even think about the future. Really, I was just thinking about, I just want to be free. I want to be free of my mother. I want to be free of whatever. And, I was really into school when I was like first grade to 6th grade. I loved school. And then somehow middle school onwards, I was bored and disinterested. And so I didn't really have any academic goals or dreams. I did kind of dream about being a writer one day. I dreamed about being a missionary one day. I dreamed about being a psychiatrist, but I didn't have concrete plans to accomplish any of those goals. So no, answer your question. And then the people that I hung out with, I ended up having a lot of older friends in my teens that were quite like 6, 7, 8 years older than me. And most of them were university people, but somehow I just hung out with them, but I never really came up with my own plan to go to university either. So I skipped all of that as well. So.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you kind of got an education from your travels. I mean, my goodness.
I think I did. Yeah.
And, I've always thought it was smart how Europeans take this gap year where they just go and they encourage their children, once they graduate from high school, to take a year to just go tromp
Just
around Europe.
go explore. Yeah.
My kids have gone. I always wanted to go to a boarding school when I was a kid. I don't know. I heard this story about a Swiss boarding school, and I begged my parents to go, and they just looked at me like I was insane. I'm from Kansas, I want to go to a Swiss boarding school. And so, it's always been my dream to live abroad and
Yeah.
travel abroad. And I have since I've been since my 40s, I've gotten to travel quite a bit. But my children have started going very young. They started going in high school. And in fact, my daughter got married on an island off of Ireland, got engaged in Australia, has been on an archaeological dig with the New York Explorers Club in Belize, and went on down to Guatemala and explored
So
the
cool.
ruins. My youngest daughter went on a people to people all over the UK. She spent a summer in Buenos Aires studying at the university there through her college. I mean, my kids have gone.
Yeah, that's
And
great.
then I've taken them with me on my trips. And what we try to do is we try to create, instead of buying each other a bunch of junk, we try to have travel memories. We all went to Disney World when Madeline had an internship, and we took my grandson, who was only 4 months old. It was the craziest trip ever, but it was one I'll never forget. But of all the trips and all the places that you've been, are there some things that really stood out for you? Of things, my agent calls them those aha moments, where everything kind of comes into full focus and it sends you spinning off into, a direction. Anything you can think of?
Well, I don't know. My bike travels were one thing, and there was, a few years of that, and I still, you know, I still to this day have dreams about, like, I dream at night that I'm doing it again, and I have these kind of fantasy bike cycling locations that I go to and revisit again and again. And I wake up and I always think I wish I could, but I just feel like I know my body can't do that anymore. But then I lived in India for a couple of years, much later, and I just finished writing a memoir about those couple of years. That'll be my third one.
This is my book. I can't wait to read it. I want to go.
Yeah. Nothing like Bollywood. It wasn't.
Well, there's, Bollywood films are one thing, but I've gotten into all the films of foreign films of, everything from Pakistan, the Middle East. And I watched one last night called Bombay Queens, which was put out with International Women's. Everybody should watch that film. It was a very powerful series. I watched it one night. But anyway, I want to hear about those times. What was your takeaway from India?
Well, I lived in Bombay. This when it was still called Bombay, and it was in the mid 80s. And went there actually to help plant a church. And it was life-changing, but not in any of the ways that I expected. I thought, it's kind of funny that I loved India while I was there, but I felt like I never really connected with the people the way I thought I would. But we ended up adopting my son there, which was really I think the real reason that God sent us to India. The biggest reason was to get my son. So that's my third memoir, that story. But after India, we ended up in Africa for about 6 years.
Now, which part of Africa?
First of all, in Nigeria, in Lagos, Nigeria. And then after that, we were in South Africa, in Pretoria. And it was funny because Lagos was probably the place where I felt the most alive and at home, even though it was one of the toughest places in the world to live. It was, you want to talk about water shortages and power shortages and nothing working, and malaria and typhoid and blah, 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 all, on and on. All of those things were our reality. But I just fell in love with the people and the culture and the energy of the place. And I still dream about being back there all the time too, and left very reluctantly.
So would you
And
say of all the places, Maryland, that you've lived, that you were most happy there?
I would say yes, in many ways, even though, it's funny because a lot of the things that I love, like I love to hike and bike and things like that. And none of that was available in Lagos. It was totally urban. There wasn't a single public park. There wasn't a single theater. There was nothing to do in terms of entertainment. It was just people, people, people. But I think with our work there and the friends we made and the things that happened, just it made a huge, it took a huge part of my heart. And South Africa I love too. And South Africa had a lot more natural beauty. And I was able to do some of the things I loved there too, the outdoor stuff. But I loved them all in different ways, I guess.
Did you
But the
ever
hard
get
part for me
sick?
was that, what's that?
Did you ever get sick in any of those countries, really sick?
Oh yeah, in Lagos, yeah. I had typhoid fever. I was very sick for a couple months there. And my son he was a 1 year old when we moved there, and he got malaria almost as soon as we got there. It was very
Oh,
scary. And yeah, it was tough, but it was just, I don't know, it just something about the place just left its mark. So yeah. So, and then we lived for a number of years in the States. We went from South Africa to Washington, D.C., of all places. And
really?
yeah,
Washington, D.C.
not by
I can't
choice.
even imagine you living there.
I can't imagine it either. I still can't. And I really hated it, I have to say. I wasn't, and I was surprised when I moved there. We moved there in November. So we went from sunny, beautiful summer in South Africa to November in Foggy Bottom, Washington, D.C. And I have to say, I didn't love the place at all. And yeah, I kind of wondered what just happened to my life here. But yeah, then I've lived in Philadelphia and Boston and Indianapolis and Norfolk, Virginia. Um, yeah, quite a few
Now,
years in the
is it
States.
always city wise, or did you live rurally?
It was always city because my husband and I were in the ministry, so we were sent places to either start churches or work with existing churches. Yeah, so
Wow.
yeah, so always surrounded by people. So yeah, I have great memories from even Washington D.C. I have great memories of friends I made there and things that happened there. But it wasn't a place I would have chosen. And I remember being so surprised that they were tourists in Washington D.C. I mean, it makes sense, I guess, that the nation's capital, right? But we were living right beside what's the Lincoln Memorial and
Oh, yeah.
yeah, we were right by there. I used to jog around the reflecting pool, right? It's called, yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I used to jog around
Washington
there every day,
Monument.
whatever. But I was always surprised, like with busloads of tourists walking around, thinking, I guess people think this is fun. But
That's
wasn't my
amazing.
idea of a vacation spot, but yeah. So
If you could live anywhere in the world right now, where would you want to live?
that's a tough question. Um, I do like where I'm living. I just wish I could bring all my friends from around the world
Yeah.
to be around me because I feel lonely sometimes for those friendships. I definitely do. I love geographically, I love where we're living now. And it's very conducive for writing. It's quiet. Um, I have a mountain right behind my house that I hike every other day. And, it's got so many things that really work with me. But I wish I could take elements from every place and just kind of create my own dream place, I guess.
You have
I've
a
never been,
yeah, you
what's
have
that?
your best friend or your friend that you took the photo with on
So she still lives in Edmonton, which is where I grew up.
okay.
And we see each other, if we're lucky, we see each other every 3 years, maybe.
Oh,
So yeah, not enough, but we talk on the phone a lot. So
oh
yeah,
yeah.
my friends are scattered far and wide. So it's great to have many friends, but it's sad not to be able to see them in person. So
Yeah.
yeah.
It really is. I know Robert Waltney and I and a couple others had a coffee the other day, a Zoom meeting coffee. That was so much fun
Is it? Yeah.
because I live in the woods, and other than the UPS guy knocking on my door, let me know he left a package, I don't see anybody.
Hmm.
And my kids, it's all still COVID here,
Yeah.
even though the governor has opened it up, nobody's really following that. People are still social distancing. So it's very ice. It's great for work when you're writing and you're painting and doing all that. But that's why I watch a lot of movies, because I have to keep my mind occupied when I'm.
Yeah.
But I've gotten used to living by myself. It's going to be really hard for me to get back into the world.
I think we're all kind of feeling a bit of that. What's it going to be like when things go back to normal? Because it's some of us have gotten very comfortable with our little introverted lives. So
just even going to get my COVID shot, I got a little claustrophobic because the line went around the pharmacy, CVS pharmacy, and I was trying to get out, and I was just like trying to keep my distance too. And it was just like, I got to get out of here, and I thought, oh no, I've been in the cabin too long, because this is the second year. So, but you have your husband with you too, and you guys have been married for how long?
We're coming up to our 40th anniversary, believe it or
not.
Yeah, this year.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's really, does he like to hike and do all those things too?
Actually, no. But we have other things in common. So yeah. I'm definitely much more outdoorsy and athletic than he is. So.
You still ride your bike?
I still ride my bike. It's not the same bike, obviously, but I don't do overnight trips or anything. I just bike around the hills here. So just for workouts, but yeah.
I hadn't been on a bike in a long time. My daughter gave me an old, the kind with no gears.
Yep.
With the fat tires. And I thought, I got it out one day. I thought, well, I'll just tool around the neighborhood.
How was it?
It was horrible. I couldn't hardly move for a week because, I had to get out off the bike and walk it up, because it's kind of rolling, kind of hills through the woods. And I go, you can come back and get that bike. If I get a bike, it's got to have gears on it.
You need to have gears for sure.
Oh, those, I call them, what do they call them? Fat tire beach bikes?
Yeah.
Cruisers?
I don't know, but it's the kind I had as a kid, but I'm not a kid anymore. So,
exactly. Yeah.
So, and I love to get outside, but I'm not so much into the dangers of, of getting off too far from people and stuff. I actually walked out the door and came between two rutting deer one day, and I just thought, oh no, the end of the Pulpwood Queen. She's back.
What a way to go.
I went around the corner, it was raining, and I heard this breaking of limbs, and two full bucks one ran out, a young one, and the other one's in the woods, and I'm right between them. And I look at the young one, and he's pawing the ground, and I just started going backwards, just walking backwards. And when I got to the corner, I turned around, I ran all the way home. But I said, that's it. I'm not walking at that time in the morning anymore during rutting season. It was a little scary. So, but did you have anything like that with animals that you ever had a scare with or anything?
Well, I do tell a couple stories in my book that I won't give away. My big fear before I set off on the trip by myself, I wrote a list of my fears, and my number one fear, I was a list of 7 things, I think, and my number 1 and my number 7 were both bears. I was quite afraid because I grew up near the Canadian Rockies, and every summer we'd hear some story or another about, true story about somebody getting mauled to death in their tent or whatever, and so I knew it was, it was a possibility. And that was the one thing that I was afraid of, but I wasn't afraid of people attacks or anything like that. So,
No, but I have a little fear of bears. I was in Yosemite camping in a tent when the rangers came around, so they were having an emergency campfire talk. And evidently, I had a professor that was a ranger at Yellowstone, and he used to tell me all these bear stories. You don't want to know. And so I went to the talk, and they said the bears keep coming down to forage in the trash barrels because it's easier to do than look for a berry, And the problem is they've been given in these PCP tranquilizer shots, and they haul them back up to the 12,000 and then they come back down. They found out after so many of those shots, it starts affecting them mentally.
Oh.
And they started attacking. And a bear the night before had broke into a ranger's cabin while she was in it. She hid, and it pulled the refrigerator out of her cabin into the yard and got it open, was eating. And so every time I heard a twig snap, I never slept all night. The next day when I got up, I had to go to the bathroom so bad. I got up and went around the tent to go up to the, bathhouse. And behind my tent was a half drunk bottle of wine, a bag of marshmallows all over the ground that had been chewed, and a package of candy bars just torn into. And I couldn't figure out if the bear was drinking wine, eating some more stuff, but there was something munching on this stuff behind my tent, and I was in the tent. I just freaked me out. So yeah, I'm like you. I have this thing about bears. It's pretty, that's the only thing. And snakes. I don't like snakes. Yeah. Don't want to deal with Kansas. We got a lot of snakes. We do here too. What about you, Robert? You have any fears of animals?
I'm a snakes.
Yeah.
Snakes. I'm terrified. I'm very phobic of snakes. So yeah, I think that's what creeps me out most.
Yep, me too. So, but bears are pretty bad because with one swipe of the paw, they can take your head off, I mean, it's just pretty awesome. Well, so you're going to have 3 memoirs then. You're going to
4 actually. I've got 3 that are finished, and the 4th that I'm.
Oh my gosh.
The 4th is about our time in Africa. So, yeah.
So the next one,
I'm writing that right now.
The next one is going to focus on.
It's the grief journey. It's all about, the next one is all about complicated and delayed grieving, basically, which I think I really hope and pray will be helpful to a lot of people, because I think a lot of us walk around with we've not been taught how to, or even the need to process grief. We push it down and we think it's just going to melt away, and it stays there, and it just gathers in all our subsequent griefs, and it can just devastate our lives later on, which is what happened with me. It really
and it can ruin your health too.
Oh, it affected everything. It affected everything in my life. So I'm really hoping that by sharing that journey, which covers quite a few years actually, it will help other people to be able to see the same things in their own lives. And
so do you think the next book will be out next year?
Yeah, the plan is to have it out for January.
Oh, good. Yeah. Well, I want to read it as soon. Yeah. Mandy and I both want to read it as soon as we can. So
for sure.
Address is up on our, because I'm reading it for 2022. I definitely want to read it. And you said it does have parts in there on India. In this.
No, the 3rd book is about India.
The 3rd book. Okay. Well,
you'll have to wait on that one. Yeah.
I'll wait.
You'll just have to wait. Yeah.
I'm very excited about that. And so to get your book, what's the story about the book and its release and everything?
Okay, well, the release date has been delayed for some unforeseeable circumstances. Basically, it's now in the last stage of being approved by Ingram Sparks, and then we're just kind of waiting for the sample copy to get to us so we can check it over, make sure it's good before we press the green light. So just to be on the safe side, we've set the release day, publication day for March 21st. Okay. So it's not too, I guess, what's today, the 9th?
I've totally, this whole COVID thing, I am so lost.
So about 11, 12 days from now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think if you just, I'll be posting on Facebook, but if people want to just check, my website is marilynkriete.com.
Okay.
And
if you'll let me know, I'll let everybody know when they can order it. Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Because everybody, you're going to want to read this book, because it is, it's really inspiring, but also you're just the bravest person I've ever known. I just think that it's kind of like, what was the book about the girl who went hiking to get through her
Wild.
Yes.
Wild.
It's like
I'll tell you a story about that book. I
Okay.
remember before it got all the buzz, I just remember walking in a bookstore when it had just been released and seeing
Yeah.
it on the table and picking it up and just seeing from the cover in the back that it was about a young woman's grief journey, taking this hike to process her grief. And my first thought was,
Oh no.
darn, she beat me to it. Because I knew that I was going to write my book, but I just didn't have time in my life to do it yet. And I wasn't quite there. So I put the book, I was dying to read Wild, but I put it back down and told myself, I'm not going to read her book. I don't want to be influenced in any way by what she
Right.
wrote. I'll read hers after I've written mine.
It's
So
it's totally different story.
it's totally different. Yeah, once I picked it up, I realized I didn't have to do that, but I just kind of felt like I didn't want to jinx my own story or whatever. I just thought I'll just
I
yeah. But
agree.
I'd love it if Cheryl Strayed could get a copy of my book someday and read my journey. That'd be
I
exciting.
think she would enjoy your book
Yeah,
very much.
yeah,
I think
yeah.
she would really enjoy it. But it was a good movie too. I watched the movie.
Yeah, it was a
And
great movie.
and so that's pretty exciting that you've got 4. I mean that's amazing in itself. How long have you been working on all these?
I think I want to say the last 5 years, maybe
Wow, that's amazing.
5, 6 years.
You
Yeah.
wrote 4 books in 5 years.
Maybe more. I can't even remember. It's kind of all blurring now. Like I started writing after we moved to Kelowna. Wasn't the first. I've been in Kelowna now for 7 years, and I think I waited a year and then I started writing the book,
Well,
the first memoir.
let me
So
ask you a question.
Yeah.
Have you got anything on your program for Saturday?
Nope.
Well, listen, Johnny Bernhard was supposed to be doing our writers club on Saturday, and her brother died.
Oh my.
So she said, we're going to have to delay mine. And I'm thinking that your story on the writing process would be fascinating. Could you join us on Saturday morning? It would be, what time zone are you in?
I'm 2 hours behind you, so
Oh,
it's
that's perfect, because we're
yeah.
meeting at 10 in the morning, so that would
Okay.
have you at noon. Could you do that?
We're meeting at 10, so it would be 8 o'clock for my time. Yeah.
Is that too early?
No, I can do 8 o'clock. Yeah.
Well, I would love to have you on, because I think your story of the process of writing the books and how you must have had your nose to the grindstone. You are a disciplined person, aren't you?
I can be.
Well, I mean,
I can
anybody
be.
who sets
Yeah.
themselves to go across the country on a bike and go to all these countries, you
Yeah,
are.
I tend to finish what I start. I guess I'll say that, right? So
Well,
yeah.
there's something to be said for that, because I told my kids, I want you to try as many things as you can, but if you start them, you have to finish them.
Mhm.
And my daughter did piano lessons, and then she didn't like it. And I said, finish it for the year. And then if you want to do something else, and then she went on to the mandolin.
Mhm.
She did that for a year, and she's gone on to many things, but finish what you start. I want to hear that writing process. So it's going to be very informal. Robert did it last time. We do it once a month. He did it last time with his writers critique group. Now, are you on in a critique group at all, or a?
I not in a formal one. I did go to attend a couple writers groups before the lockdowns all started. And in fact, that's one of the things I miss most about normal life during this time has been those groups, being able to just
There
go
aren't
and
any
share our writing.
online up there?
There are things online. I just have to warm up to being online more, to be honest. Like I just really like in-person things so much more. And yeah.
I don't know. We had that meeting on Saturday morning, and we talked for how
4
long?
hours.
How long?
Did you?
We were on for 4 hours.
Wow.
We
Wow.
were.
For coffee.
I
I was
know.
probably so wired by the time I got off of there. Were we really on there for 4 hours?
We were. It went by quickly.
It was the fastest time I've ever been.
It was a
in.
lovely morning.
We decided we'd do it again because
Yes.
it was really fun. It was just 4 of us, and we just talked and talked up about everything, about books and writing and, what we're reading and sharing stories. I think what happens is, I think everybody has Zoom
Fatigue.
fatigue.
Yeah.
But I will tell you that you only have Zoom fatigue when you're not with engaging people. Because
Yeah.
I'm telling
Yeah.
you, when I get on there, that's not the longest one I had. I got on with Mandy Haynes and we talked for 7 hours.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
that was insane.
Yeah.
But we were just getting really to know each other better because Mandy is the author that volunteered to help me with my girlfriend weekend. And I found a younger version of myself.
Mhm.
We have so many things in common, and she's an artist, I'm an author, we're both authors. She's a dog person, I'm a cat person. I mean, it's just like every time I'd say this, she goes, oh, that reminds me of this. And we would just, and the next thing she goes, Kathy, I think it was getting close to 3 a.m. So, but it's just like I do these talks like right now, and I don't even know where the time goes. The next thing I know, it's the book club's over.
Time for
I
the
wish
next
more
time
people
for the
would-
next meal.
Yeah, time for the next meal. But if you don't mind, I'm going to put you down for Saturday because
Sure.
I just found out that she was not going to be able, she'll be coming, but she's dealing with I can't even imagine losing a sibling. It was hard enough to lose my father. My mother's still living, but I don't have much family, immediate family, now my own children I have. But do you have just one son or how many children?
I have a son and a daughter.
Okay.
Yeah, they're both adopted. Yeah.
Yeah. Are they both from India?
No, my daughter is from Georgia. Actually, she's from Athens, Georgia.
Oh, wow, just up the
Yeah.
road from me.
Yeah, just
That
up the road. Yeah,
is.
yeah. So I spent time down there when we adopted her, and then we went back together a few years ago so she could meet her birth family. And
Oh.
that was an interesting.
Did you write about that?
I haven't. I kind of feel like that's her story to tell
Yeah.
more. Yeah, but maybe one day I will. But yeah.
Well, and is she still in Georgia or what? No.
No. She lives not far from me here.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah,
And you have
in Kelowna.
grandchildren?
I have our first grandchild is due to be born this summer. My son and his wife are expecting their first child.
So
yeah,
excited for you.
yeah. Finally, I'm going to be like one of the world's oldest grandmothers. But
no, I was the world's oldest grandmother. I mean, I went to my 25th class reunion and I just had a baby. And I had classmates that had grandchildren.
Yeah.
I got a really late start. I didn't have my first child until I was almost 34 and my last one when I was almost 38. And so, and remember when Farrah Fawcett had her first child at 36, everybody goes, she's so over the hill. And I thought, dang, I know people in their 50s that have babies.
Yeah.
That's pretty crazy. Well, it's so great that you have your kids around you. I do too. They're both in Texas, but the problem is here in Texas, everything's been shut down. I mean, COVID is.
It's very shut down in Canada. I think much more than what I see. Well, just what I judge from what I see on Facebook and people getting together in the States. I have a lot of American friends. Seems like there's a lot more traveling and getting together going on there than there is here. I mean, here, most people haven't gone anywhere in a year. They've just been hunkered at home.
My kids and we don't get together very often because we're all trying to keep safe, and we talk and we FaceTime and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But my grandson's about to turn 2 and I missed his first birthday because of COVID. And I'm going to miss his second birthday because of COVID, but he's coming. We're being real safe, and I'll have my second vaccine in April. So we're going to take him to the zoo. We figured that'd be a good place to get. He has a thing for bears.
A positive thing for bears.
He loves his stuffed bears. He's got a lot. I got him a great big one that he's got in his room that he loves to dress up. But anyway, well, it's good that you have all your family around and you've got all these books. Have you got the titles for all 4 yet, or just?
I'm struggling so much to come up with the title for my India book. I cannot come up with one for that. So sometimes when, those times when you wake up in the middle of the night and you got to think about something, I lie there and think, what can I name this book? For some reason, the title's not coming to me, but it's funny with Paradise Road, I went through a whole bunch of titles before I settled on Paradise Road. But with the India one, I haven't even come up with one that I like yet. So yeah, we'll see.
Well, maybe it'll be something that is got an Indian phrase in it or something.
I hope it just kind of, I'm waiting for it to kind of fall upon me one day. So the box must be empty came from something that my therapist said to me. So that one kind of seemed very meaningful to me.
I pay attention I collect words and phrases and quotes and things. And Claire Fullerton said something to me the other day, and she goes, you have a lot of jewelry with garnets and amethysts, right? And I said, well, yes, because that's my daughter's, their gemstone, their middle names are gemstones. And that's because, I was a geology major too. And I did this painting, and you know how you have to come up with names. And I did this painting just this week, and I thought, it's like the forest was adorned with garnets, rubies, and gold. So that's what I called. Adorn me with garnets, rubies, and gold. And everybody goes, I love that title. And it'll come. I listen. I'm an eavesdropper when I go to airports and restaurants. I listen to what people say.
Yeah.
Sometimes you don't want to hear some of the things you hear people say, but I do think that when you hear certain, like I get that word a day thing that you get. And I was telling Robert about the word orchidaceous. And I said, oh my God, I love this word. And it means flashy, showing. I thought, well, there's a word that fits me. I'm orchidaceous.
That's totally your word, Kathy.
I named one of my paintings orchidaceous because I thought that is just what it is. It's showy, it's flashy, it's got glitter. So, and I was one of those kids that glitter always made everything better. Give me sequins. I would always have the most elaborate Valentines, with all the sequins on it and the glitter. And, no boy wants a Valentine like that. I love them. That's what I like. So, but we all have our own tastes. If you were going to have a favorite color, what would it be?
Me? Purple for sure.
You know what? I was going to guess. I should have said the great Tommy, because look, I'm looking at the curtain behind you, and I'm looking at the tone, your jewel tone of your top, and I'm thinking, that's so funny. If you were going to guess Robert's color, what would it be?
Well, I'm guessing black from what I'm seeing.
I do wear a lot of black. I do, just because it's easy.
Yeah,
it is.
Everything matches. Yeah.
It is, but what is your favorite color?
Oh gosh. So, I think, I do like shades of blue. There's something sort of cool about blue. If you think of like a blue willow plate, or nautical blue stripes, I love the whole palette of blue.
Yeah, I do too. Yeah.
Well, I like the combination of garnets and amethysts, those jewel tones, the purples and the reds, but the muted. And I like them together. And I think it's because my dad got my mom one time this silk dress, and it was those colors. It was stripes, wider and skinny stripes. It was silk, and it was all those colors. And then the shoes had 2 tones of leather of amethyst and garnet. And I remember thinking, dang, why can't I be the same size as my mother? My mother was like 5'3", and I'm 5'8.5". I couldn't wear her clothes past the 5th grade, So, but there's something, and in fact, my bedroom is those colors. It's actually, I call it my Valentine room, but it's those deep reds and garnets. That's what I like too. Yeah.
I like jewel tones.
Yeah, but I would have guessed that because I'm looking at your tone in the curtain in the room. But as you can see, I like color.
You love color, I can tell.
I've got all my Bollywood stuff kind of over here and all over my house. But and my little, can you see my little puppets?
Those are cool. Those are very cool.
Yeah,
very cool. Where are they from?
They're from India.
Okay.
I watched that film. Well, I've had some of them, but that film Paheli, and it's based upon an Indian folk tale. And that's a region where they make those puppets.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
I saw where I could buy a whole bunch of them in bulk on eBay. And I said, I've got to have those puppets.
They
And
look great.
I want them in a bid, but I'm a real big, they have something here called the Highway 80 garage sale, and it runs the full length of Highway 80 for days. And you just run up and down the highway and you can get the coolest things. Like this, I may get in trouble for this, but if you look behind me in my throne chair, up on top, I've got my coyote skin.
Okay.
And I
Yeah.
met this guy that I bought a whole bunch of skins from because I used them in, I discovered this artist in Fairhope, Alabama that uses fur in his art pieces. And he says he just picks up vintage, and his name's Nars. You got to look him up. This guy is the most incredible artist ever. And he lives downtown Fairhope, Alabama in his gallery. His living room and bedroom and kitchen are all right in the middle of it.
Wow.
It's like, I don't even know what it's like. It's like
Like a really cool loft.
Huh?
Studio, maybe loft studio. He's just
No,
immersed.
all on one floor. But this guy, his big shows for his work were in Berlin, and everybody thinks he's from a foreign country because he goes by the name Nars, but he's from Fairhope, Alabama.
Does he spell it N-A-R-S or N-A-R-Z? Or
You gotta Google him. You gotta Google
how do you
him.
spell it? N-A-R-S?
Nars. And I
Okay.
met this guy. I had another artist friend go see Nars. And I walked in as he was eating a bowl of soup, and he gave me a full tour. It was the most amazing. I couldn't afford anything. I couldn't afford not even his book. His books are over $100. But I just fell in love with everything that he was doing. And that's what I like to do. I like to go in people's homes, and I don't care if they're the most expensive homes or if they're in the, Oprah Winfrey went to the slums in India, and she went to these one family's home. They lived in a size of a space about the size of my master bathroom. And they were the happiest, most loving family you've ever seen in your life. But she said, why is everybody so happy here? And, it's amazing to me when I see these movies and shows and interviews, just how all the things they have to live with, that's got to make life so difficult. But yet they seem a happy people. Did you find that when you were there?
Yeah, I mean, it's not utopia, and people are not,
no.
yeah. People still have their problems and whatever. But yeah, I think in general, there's just this, I think, it feels like in a lot of those, what we call third world countries, people just seem to live more in the moment. And just be kind of present and very connected with friends and family and community in a way that we often
don't
aren't
have
over here.
that anymore here.
Yeah.
Now, I think when I was a little girl, we had it because your whole family lived in the same community, but now everybody goes out.
Yeah.
And we don't have it. And people here aren't very happy,
Living in the moment's hard.
It is very hard. But I can tell you that I'm living in the moment now since COVID, because everybody goes, well, are you going to be there tomorrow? It's Saturday. And I go, what? It's not Tuesday? And they go, it's Saturday, Kathy. Now that I just live in this space, I don't have on a watch. I don't look at my clock, but I can tell you what time it is almost any time of the day just by looking out the window. And that's the way they are. They can look outside and they know it's time to start getting dinner. It's whatever. They just half past a freckle. But this has been fascinating. Is there any particular story that you would like to share with the listening audience? Because this will be recorded. It is recorded and it's going to go up on YouTube. Anything you'd like to end with in particular, and then we'll start back in on Saturday with the writers.
Yeah. Wow, I wasn't prepared for this question.
I don't want you to be prepared because I think the most authentic answers are the ones that
they just come to you, right?
I think people are more truthful. If you have to prepare for it, they try to think, what's going to make me sound most literary? And I go, I just want people to see that authors are just like you and me, except they have a way of expressing.
Mhm.
Why do you think you became a writer?
Why?
Why?
Well, I've always loved books. I've always loved language. I've always loved words. So that part, and it always came very naturally to me. But I didn't write for a long time. My life was really hectically busy for many years in the
Did you
ministry.
journal at all?
Not even much that. So, I mean, sometimes, yeah, I did in terms of, like, I wrote a lot of Bible studies and things like that, but in terms of just creative writing, none at all. And but I always knew that it was always like someday when my life somehow changes and I have space, this is what I'm going to do. So I just had to wait for that time to open up in my life. So I'm kind of envious of people that kept it up. They started in their 20s and kept it up every decade. And I feel like I'm a very late starter. But I kind of always knew that I would be someday, even though it probably wasn't very obvious to any other people for a long time, that was a big part of who I am. So,
one of the things for me is I found that I have the stories completely and already in my head. I just have to take the time to write them down.
Yeah.
I mean, I think them over every night as I'm laying in bed. Where do I want this to begin? I mean, my next book, the beginning, the middle, and the end are done. Now I'm going back in and changing up a few things because I got to get the ice storm in there, because this ice storm was life-changing for me.
Yeah, sure.
Go without water for over 3 weeks, no running water, really makes you realize how privileged we are in this country. And we take so many. There was a wonderful book, and Harrison Ford starred in the film. Oh my gosh. And it was called, where he went, it was in Africa. What was the name of it? It was a kind of one of those films. I need to watch that. Maybe I'll watch it tonight. But he develops air conditioning there, and it changes everything. And I think that's when you can control your environment, it helps you leap forward with all this technology. But when you're having to live where you're just trying to get basic needs, you really find out who you are. I'm really a lot stronger than I thought I was because after melting snow on the stove to flush the toilets, you got to melt a lot of snow because you can pack a big turkey baster with snow and it goes down to about that much water in the pan.
Yeah.
I thought, but I did make snow ice cream one night. That was fun.
Snow cones, we used to call those, right?
Yep, it was a lot of fun. But I did the diabetic version. I did it with almond milk and natural fruit, didn't add any sugar. And so it was quite tasty. But it was like this high on my chairs out there, and it was just as white as snow. So I thought, I'm going to make me some. We'll see how it goes. Well, of all the travels that you've done, what's been your favorite food? What do you like to eat?
I love Indian food, I have to say. Yeah, that was one of the best perks of living in India, was just the amazing food that was so inexpensive.
You cook all those dishes?
What's that? Do I cook all of them? I never really did much cooking while I was there. I took advantage of having restaurants everywhere, and the food was incredibly cheap at that stage. You could afford to eat out a lot. So I talk about that more in my memoir, but I love the food in India. That was always a great source of comfort and consolation if things got tough. And
they eat a lot of sweets though, don't they too?
Not so much. They do, but yeah, not. I mean, some people do, I guess, but
I think the thing that's funny to me the most about, because I love other cultures and things, but I love their clothes. I mean, I could live in those saris every day, but the thing about the food, they're always, wafting the thing in the fire, and then they give you the bite of and I just love those little rituals. They're just, I don't know, there's comfort in rituals.
Mhm.
I just find it very comforting. But I also think it's funny that the way they drink orange soda, they just drink glasses of, with no ice, just orange soda, like, I guess, like, what is it, Fanta that makes orange soda? I don't know.
Yeah, when we lived there, they didn't have Coke or Fanta, and they had a Limca, which is a lemon lime one, and Thumbs Up was the Coke, their cola,
Yes.
and then Gold Spot, I think, was what the orange soda was called. But yeah,
And you always see them bringing out these trays of just water.
yeah. What I loved the chai, the real chai in
Oh, yeah.
Bombay. Yeah, not like the chai we have here. And I think what I loved most was getting to eat with my hands, because all my life I've loved to eat with my fingers. And finally, I was in a culture where that was, that's how it's done. So that was that was great.
That, I love it. Well, I'm looking forward to this next book now. I've got this one read. I can't wait to read the next one.
Thank you,
Hey,
Kathy.
and just a thought. Have you ever thought of, I used to subscribe to Outside Magazine. Are you familiar with that magazine?
Mhm.
There's a lot of magazines now about well, travel, but a hot topic is women traveling alone.
Mhm.
You would be great to write some stories about that, or even just show them your book,
Mhm.
because I
Yes,
think they would find, people would find that fascinating. I'm always looking for ways to market people's books.
Thank you.
I
That's
would
a good idea. It's funny. It's such a different world now. Like you couldn't recreate the kind of traveling I did anymore, because in the 70s there was like, of course there were no cell phones. When I was off the grid, I was totally I was out of contact for weeks at a time. With nobody knew where I was, and
That's
you
hard.
know,
That's hard to imagine anymore. But when I
yeah,
was a kid, we'd go out the door in the morning, the screen door would slam, and we wouldn't come back till my mom
sure.
rang the school bell
Yeah,
to make us
yeah,
come home at dark when we were chasing lightning bugs and playing
yeah,
kickball
yeah.
or kick the can or whatever. But can you imagine just putting your little 5, 3, and 2-year-old out the door in the first thing in the morning, and we didn't come back in until
That's
now?
great.
That would never happen because people be calling the police. There's 3 children playing.
Nobody's with them.
Nope. Well, there was a whole pack of us in the neighborhood.
Yeah, that's how we were too. Yeah.
And I think all the mothers kind of looked out for the kids. My kids were raised that way in Jefferson, Texas, because everybody would get on their bikes, and all the kids whose parents had businesses downtown, they would be, and I get a call and they go, "Kathy, do you know Madeline's down in the creek?" I go, "Tell her to come home." And she goes, "Mom, how did you know I said, "Well, so-and-so called me." So, but those days of freedom are.
Yeah, it's just different. Like I have a young friend. She's in her early 20s, and she did a cross Canada bike trip by herself a couple years ago, and then she did a trip where she rode from here in BC down the coast and down to South America, which is very admirable. But it was so different because she's on social media the entire time. She's talking to people every day. She's filming everything. It just felt so different from my experience of traveling when I was really, I was gone for months at a time. And
That's
yeah,
why I think your story would be one people want to read, because the fact that you didn't have a cell phone, or, you didn't have credit cards. I mean,
MapQuest.
MapQuest.
Yeah. Just
Yeah,
have my good old paper map.
paper
Yeah.
maps that when they
Yeah.
got wet, it's just disaster. But yeah, I'm a big fan of everything Rand McNally ever had. I used to rep for them, in fact. But that's pretty amazing, Marilyn. Well, I'm really excited about everybody getting to read your book. And this is the first year I've ever done international reads. And I love my international reads so much. So you're our first one. Well, you're actually, the first one was Think Like a Monk, which was January's pick by Jay
Right.
Shetty, who is one of my favorite podcasters, who's from India. And I just love that guy. And you're our second one. So congratulations. And
Thank you, Kathy.
you let me know when that book is out and we'll get everybody, we
I
might.
will, absolutely. I will.
And for now, what we'll do is we'll announce everybody, come back and see Madeline Kriete, come and see you at Marilyn on Saturday at 10 a.m., which I'm sorry is 8 o'clock a.m. Do I need
That's
to make
okay.
it an hour later?
If you can, that'd be great. If it's
Make
not
it
a problem.
11. I can make it
Okay.
11. Let's make it 11. That'll make it a little bit more reasonable where you can at least have
Sure.
coffee before you get up. So
Thank you. Okay.
yeah, we'll make it 11 o'clock on this coming Saturday for our second ever Writers Club. And we'll just be prepared to just talk about the writing process.
That'd be great. Thank you, Kathy. I look forward to
Oh,
it.
well, I do everything I can to promote my authors. And this just, sometimes you just have to jump on these serendipitous moments because, things happen in life. And I used to just go, oh, no, she can't be here. What am I going to do? And now I go, well, something will happen. I'll figure it out. And then when you were talking, I thought, well, here's the perfect opportunity.
Thanks,
So
Kathy.
we'll see you on Saturday at 9 o'clock.
9 a.m. my time, 11 a.m. your time.
And
Okay.
thank you for joining us, Robert. Thank you always for
Robert, it's great hanging out with you. Thank you.
anytime.
Thanks for
Jump
being
in
here.
anytime, because every time I have authors jump in, I always give them a minute or two to talk about their book or introduce their book, because I feel like it's really hard these days to get your book out there when none of the bookstores are doing events, none of the festivals are doing events, and everyone I'm watching getting posted right now, they're all virtual. So, and ours will be virtual next year, but it's going to last a week next year.
Wow.
Because we're going to spread it out a little bit. We're going to add more authors. So we'll have you back for that next book for sure. And just get me a copy when you can, because I want to get it read so we can get you on the list. And Mandy too, our addresses are up on the website under book club selections, www.thepulpwoodqueens.com. So you guys have a wonderful evening.
You too, Kathy.
And we'll see you Saturday.
See you in a few days. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye. Till then, it's all about the story.
It always is. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.